So, Unilever actually is a great institution. I had a wonderful time, more than 6-7 years, and I learned a lot. But and I was moving to Thailand on an ice cream role for the region. But then this Coke opportunity came up. So they especially had kind of hunted down and did mention there's a kind of a global CEO sponsored initiative to turn around Pakistan. So I always thought I knew the beverage industry from my friends on the other side of the fence, and I thought it would be a good challenging risk to take on. And the other thing was I knew there'll be more opportunity to showcase, what one can do in terms of making a difference more holistically versus what I would have done at Unilever. I would say the biggest challenge is Kimberly Clark is relatively much more skewed towards the developed markets, which is the European market and the US market and Australia. So we are relatively less entrenched in developing and emerging markets. So that's one of the key challenges that we all know that the strategy and the way to actually manage emerging market is very different than developed market. So it's not just a challenge on my part, it's a challenge from a company point of view in terms of the culture, in terms of ways of doing business, from an investment point of view, the strategic lens, the portfolio you need to cater to, understanding consumer and retail side. So I would say not a challenge, meaning it's a new space which actually KC as a whole is actually dealing with. I would say on multiple fronts. One was in terms of creating a much more stronger product portfolio. We did a kind of a massive pre-segmentation strategy to make sure that we cater to not just the mainstream segment and the value segment, but also the most premium segment. So how do we lead premiumization, which as a kind of a consequence helps improves your profitability. The second one, we've kind of revamped the whole communication in terms of the brand image for Huggies. The third is we actually horizontally expanded into other portfolios, other categories like baby apparel, toiletries, more so in the developed market. So expansion of portfolio, premiumization, and elevating the brand image. So it was a pretty steep task because our ratio in terms of our market share versus competition in all respects, market share, investment, in market penetration, especially within the cola segment, we had a huge gap. So we had to develop a more, I would say, strategic business plan, not just a marketing plan, which actually included on-ground investment in terms of chilled availability, numeric distribution expansion, having the right pack price architecture, then how do we create a differentiated brand positioning versus competition, and then pick up the key occasions so that we can target to drive recruitment, because the per cap in Pakistan was still pretty low. So rather than just focusing on taking share for competition, the intention was to grow the overall pie. And even as a, let's say, week number 2 player, we wanted to lead that, so that as a consequence, the incremental opportunity from that point of view was much significant versus Pepsi. So it was like, and then invested a lot in terms of resources, team's capability, hiring the best talent, and also partnering with the best agencies we could actually get hold of. And in some certain cases, we actually did set up partnership agencies from scratch, which didn't exist in Pakistan at that time. Like Ogilvy at that time did not exist, so we brought in Ogilvy, using the leverage of Coke as a system. So in emerging economies, as I was mentioning, the way to manage business is quite significantly different than developed markets. So segmented approach plays a key part. You have to cater to both, let's say, mainstream segment plus also the value segment as well. So how do you cater to that in terms of your portfolio, in terms of product proposition, understanding the consumer, let's say, demand spaces and the requirement in a very segmented way, and how do you, let's say, with a comparative, let's say, differentiation point of view, not just from a product point of view, also in terms of servicing, route to market, your brand, let's say, association with that segment in terms of the value offering you're giving. So, and then the whole supply chain has to be super comparative in terms of making sure that your sourcing is comparative. The relationship you would have with, especially traditional trade, plays a very key part. So numeric distribution versus the more developed market where you rely more on, let's say, organized sector. In most of the emerging market, it's predominantly unorganized retail side. So managing unorganized retail side requires very different expertise, even from a sales force perspective. So I would say very different skill set and very different ways of managing business versus developed markets. So Coke Studio originally was born in Pakistan, and there the whole idea, as a part of our long range plan of beating the #1 player at that time. So we wanted to create a platform whereby we culturally connect with the local youth. So that's how the whole music platform Coke Studio was actually formed. And the whole idea was that we create a much sharper, stronger brand image versus competition, which is rooted in what Coke as a brand stands for. And in conjunction with, as we were improving the brand equity, what can we do to actually convert that brand equity into purchase cycle in terms of all the other stuff we did in terms of driving occasions like meals, chilled availability, distribution, and also on supply chain investment, on manufacturing capacity as well. So everything has to work in a very structured way, so that you're generating demand, you are meeting those demand with the right capacity, you're able to supply chilled availability at the right points, making sure that you have the right pack price architecture. So Coke Studio was the enabler in terms of elevating the brand image, and the rest of the strategic pillars were to actually ensuring that we convert the brand equity with growing top line. I think first an acknowledgement that everyone is learning. There's no perfect answer, and we all know that it's evolving every day, literally. Yeah, in terms of the platform, in terms of the capabilities, both internally within the marketing, let's say, teams, plus also in terms of your partners. So I would say so far, meaning what's AI, meaning what we are currently leveraging is specifically around innovations. We actually have created models whereby using the power of AI to help create much more superior product proposition innovations, which are rooted in stronger data, because obviously what you can pull through AI is much more sharper, extensive, versus you would do it in a traditional way. Second thing is you can actually test those concepts in the real environment. And third, it's much more flexible and agile. You can actually do multiple iteration in real time. So that's innovation part. We're doing the same on the communication side. Developing concept, developing communication, messaging, developing insights, and using multiple AI platform to again, this is not the perfect word at the moment, but it's like a 80-20 rule. You can do much, I would say, deeper, faster, and with a much more cost-effective approach, yet not compromising on the quality. Yeah. I would say from a team collaboration point of view, I think it's the most important thing is making sure that everyone is aligned on the vision, and then what are the strategic roadmap to get to that vision, what role each of the team members need to play in terms of their own expertise and their responsibilities, and how does everyone support each other to actually achieve the end objective. So it's it's not an individual kind of let's say battle. It's more of a team effort. So you win as a team and you lose as a team. So if you have that spirit where it's more interdependence between the team members, and obviously the end success is a success of the team, then everyone rallies around. And if you make some mistakes, it's not about blaming a particular individual or certain individuals. It's about the team making corrective actions to learn from that and quickly pivot and solve those challenges. So far, I would say Coke Studio in terms of its impact and the scale. So that has been, I would say, biggest one so far. There have been others, but I would say that has been the biggest one now. I would say it's a two-way process. So it's from an enterprise point of view, a lot of local enterprises are much sharper and better at doing certain things, and obviously in the corporate world there are certain things which are an advantage. So it's about not necessarily forcing how, let's say, corporate would work, like a traditional corporate or multinational would work. Rather, it's picking up the relevant learnings which can actually add value to the enterprise. For example, even in the corporate world, or previous CEO, when I used to be at the Coca-Cola company, he used to say that despite being very big, how do you create a soul of a small company? And the reason was basically that how do you become much more entrepreneurial? How do you become much more agile? How do you take more bolder risk, which obviously are challenges in the corporate world, which are the strength in the let's say enterprise environment. But at the same time, the learnings and the rigor and the depth of data and resources you would have in the corporate world, how can you actually leverage that to advise what could work in the enterprise companies as well?